The NBA has officially relocated the 2017 NBA All-Star Game away from Charlotte, North Carolina, in response to an anti-LGBT bill the state passed back in March. So I'm going to get to the statement first. Hassan Piker is joining me here. No Jason Rubin today, but we will truck along with this very important story today. So the statement from the league is as follows. The NBA has decided to relocate the 2017 All-Star Game from Charlotte with the hope of rescheduling for 2019. We'll see about that. Since March, when North Carolina enacted HB2 and the issue of legal protections for the LGBT community in Charlotte became prominent, the NBA and the Charlotte Hornets have been working diligently to foster constructive dialogue and try to effect positive change. We have been guided in these discussions by long-standing core values of our league. These include not only diversity, inclusion, fairness, and respect for others, but also the willingness to listen and consider opposing points of view. And then they go through more of the statements, but at the end, they basically state, we are particularly mindful of the impact of this decision on our fans in North Carolina, who are among the most passionate in our league. It is also important to stress that the City of Charlotte and the Hornets organization have sought to provide an inclusive environment, and the Hornets will continue to ensure that all patrons, including members of the LGBT community, feel welcome while attending games and events in their area. We look forward to restarting plans for our All-Star festivities in Charlotte for 2019, provided there is an appropriate resolution to this matter. The NBA will make an announcement on the new location in the 2017 NBA All-Star Game in the coming weeks. And it has already been alluded to, this will be relocated to New Orleans. All right, so now that we're through that, that's a lot of statement there, but I think that I articulated it pretty well.
Except for the fucking, the H's and the B's.
The H's and the B's, that's what I said.
What a weird thing to say.
All right, so Haas, full disclosure, spade a spade, you have some fantastic analysis at times on the Young Turks.
At times.
No, that was my shade, but really, so you do a lot of political coverage, specifically on Facebook, so we obviously wanted you to come in here because you're a great fan of the show and we like to have you, but I wanted to gauge your thoughts on this. What is your understanding of the matter? Do you think this is a good move? We will get to the reaction from the players, but
100%.
Yeah, I agree.
This is an awesome move. This is exactly what corporations should be doing, and they do all the time in a very interesting way that we usually criticize on the Young Turks when they influence legislation, right? When they pay politicians, like campaign financing and whatnot, like they're voting with their dollars, and in this instance, because they disagree with the actions taken in North Carolina on behalf of the LGBT community, they're taking the stance, and it's a lot of dollars being taken away from North Carolina, and the North Carolina industry should suffer because of this, and they should then in turn go back and demand that the state really change their laws. I mean, take a different attitude. And one of the things I find really troubling but also ironic is that there are fans out there that are like, that's unfair. Like, that's unfair. You know what's unfair? When you can't go to the bathroom that you feel comfortable in.
Yeah.
That's fucking unfair.
So historically, by the way, people may think that this is a new age where certain sporting environments can actually influence change, but this has been going on. We look back at 1990, the NFL removed Super Bowl from Arizona at the state as it declined to designate Martin Luther King Day a state holiday, and then 2 years later, they officially recognized their ignorance, and MLK Day became a thing, and then they hosted the Super Bowl later on. So it has happened in the past, right? And I'm in the same ballpark as you. I think more corporations have to be standing by this because it is very rare in this day and age that you have such a huge influence coming together with such an important message, right? Because often than not, you don't get athletes voicing their concern. I think athletes, they shouldn't be held to their word. They shouldn't be asked to come out and speak on these matters. But when they do, and an organization like the NBA stands for something like this, it sends a huge message. It provides confidence to those, like you're mentioning, who don't feel comfortable going to the restroom because a state is so ignorant in their views that they've upheld their own legislation to prevent this from happening. So I think this is a very important thing. I don't like to cover politics and sports when they cross over. I think that
Why
sports
not?
is. I think sports
You
is
like
an escape.
politics. You talk about politics
I like
a lot.
politics, right? But let's be honest. I think that sports is an escape from the harshness of that this world provides. I hate when I see, obviously, the sport that's close to my heart, soccer, be plagued by certain terrorist values and racist values, because we see these things happen in France consistently, and I like to try and keep them separate. But at times they do cross over. specifically in America, when there's certain athletes that voice their concerns over things like this, and certain progressions can be assisted when big-name athletes put their voice to it. And talking about those big-name athletes, let's get to Twitter first to see how these athletes reacted to the situation. So, NBA correspondent Dan's going to shout out his last name so that I can pronounce it well, because otherwise, Wojnarowski broke the story first. Let's see his tweet. So, Wojnarowski said straight away, this was actually at 11:20 a.m. On July 21st. So this is before it actually came out, and he said that NBA on the brink of pulling the 2017 All-Star Game out of Charlotte, with New Orleans emerging as frontrunner to host February 19 game. So this actually moved forward to a point that I think Haas was alluding to, which will be the main issue here, which is eventually going to be the reason why change, I think, may happen, because what promotes change more than anything else? It's the dollar bills, baby. That's millions in revenue local businesses will lose out on because of HB2.
HB2.
HB2. And we move on to our next response, which is, of course, the Michael Jordan crying face. In Charlotte, which does hit home to Michael Jordan. Of course, this is his hometown. He wanted to see this hometown thrive and benefit, because they would thrive and benefit from an organization like this. It brings in big dollars, it brings in attraction, promotes a good message. But when your state doesn't uphold a message which is no longer medieval, which is staying in tune with the times that we live in at the moment, when they don't uphold that, they're going to pay the consequences. And that consequences, thankfully, in this situation, is going to be one that potentially may invoke change, and that's when people lose out on money. Because let's be honest, in today's day and age, that's the only way you're going to get things done.
The Chamber of Commerce, I think back in the end of May, said that this law will cost the city in total $285.5 million.
Wow. That's some pocket change.
And look, it's weird, because if you're an LGBT member in North Carolina, it's already kind of difficult for you. And then to top it off, let's say you're a fan of the NBA and you want to see the All-Star game, and then you're like, well, this is even doubly shitty.
Yeah.
But those people are already fighting to change this law. Movements like this from other private corporations, like what they intend to do is get the other people on the other side of the equation to just kind of take a step back and say, well, you know what, I'm a bigot, right? But I really like the NBA. I would like to watch the All-Star game, or I own a local business, and I think that my business would thrive because the All-Star game being here. Yeah. I think maybe we should change this law. Like, that's the whole concept behind it.
It is unfortunate, right, that the only way to potentially get something like this changed is through money. But when you think about it, right, take away all
Everything
the other take away all the other values that goes along with being part of the LGBT community, right? You want to see progression, but more often than not, like everyone else, by the way, despite their difference in views that you may not agree with, they're consumers. So why should they go to an event like this in a state that doesn't uphold those values to help in progression? They shouldn't go and spend their money on the merchandise if it's in a state that, if the NBA maintains to have it in that state, they're basically standing by that state in their views, because they're allowing for it to profit from this event. But anyway, let's get to the people who are involved in this situation, the NBA players and former players. Throwing first to Jason Collins, the first openly gay NBA athlete. My official statement on the NBA moving the event out of North Carolina. So this is what he said. As a member of the NBA family and as a gay man, I'm extremely proud to see the NBA take initiative and move the All-Star game from North Carolina. Their decision is an extremely poignant one that shows that discrimination of any kind is not welcome in sports and is not acceptable in any part of our society. The NBA has set the best kind of example and precedent moving forward for all to follow, and we continue to, I believe. So he said, it's tough. That's home for me, North Carolina, my family, and all that different stuff and all those different ties, but sometimes things have to be done, and it is what it is. The biggest thing that I hope is things change so that the game can be there at some point. I think those fans in North Carolina deserve it. I live on completely other coast now, and like I said, I was excited to have the opportunity to maybe go home for that game, maybe and play. Some things are bigger than the game. So an important message from Chris Paul, and one that, of course, we have to adhere to, is the fact that there's going to be fans that are going to be disappointed. There's going to be fans that are for progression in North Carolina and want to support the NBA and want to support the LGBT community. But when the state doesn't see eye to eye with the majority of the country at the moment, you're going to have to invoke some regulation. You're going to have to invoke something that's going to allow them to potentially sit up and take notice that this isn't okay and that the things have to be done in order to invoke change.
I mean, by the way, I think the biggest loss here is, again, loss of revenue, right? Because in the end of the day, and a lot of you will probably criticize me for saying this, but it's the All-Star game. Like, come on.
No one's going to criticize you for that.
Yeah, okay. It's not a big deal. It's not the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like, it's not. It'll bring in a tremendous amount of revenue for that particular time that it's there, but in the end of the day, as far as like, oh, I couldn't go to the All-Star game in North Carolina because it's now held in New Orleans, like I'm sure there's like 4 people out there that feel that way. But, you know, I mean, but you were going to talk about the partial owner statement, which I think is very interesting because it really shows the other side of things, what we've been ragging on for this whole time.
Yeah, so let's take a look at this quotation, which I think sums up one of the main reasons why this is a good thing, because owners like this have their thoughts on the matter. So this is from Felix Sabates, who is part owner of Charlotte, I believe. And he said, "What is wrong with a person using a bathroom provided for the sex they were born with? If you want to change your gender, so be it. We are a free country. But don't force 8-year-old children to be exposed to having to share bathroom facilities with people that don't share the organs they were born with." This is plain wrong. This could cause irreparable damages to children that don't understand why they have to see what God did not mean for them to witness. We have some very confused business as well as political humans that frankly have made this a political issue rather than moral issues. Shame on them. I don't know if that's a spelling error with born in there. Is he supposed to be alluding to Jason
Bourne? I don't know.
Bourne?
I think he was saying like the born, or like the organ that they're born with isn't Jason Bourne.
Yeah, I don't understand
like,
what he's meaning. So what's your thoughts on this? Because clearly this is one of the main reasons why issues like this can't be resolved in North Carolina, because people like this are still so backward in their views.
Look, I mean, we can't just like, I don't want to dismiss these people and say that their views are backward. Like, look, they're just different than my views, right? The way I see it, I look at this as this is something you're born with. This is not something that you choose to do so. And even if you were choosing to be gay or if you were choosing to be transgender, again, like he mentioned, it's a free country. But that fundamental difference is basically the focal point of this entire argument. It's the biggest point of contention between people like myself and yourself and people like Felix, who believe that this is a moral issue. They don't think that these people, they don't think that these people have a right to do this. They don't think that these people have a right to be a certain way. And that's when this gets cloudy. That's when this situation becomes a little interesting, because like he said, like it's an immoral thing to do when it's not, and we see that, but they don't. So it's weird. But in the end of the day, you should never impose your religious liberties that constrict other people's freedoms. Well, you can't do that. That's where your freedom ends, is when you're constricting other people.
Let us know what you think in the comment section below. Do you think that it was right that the NBA has moved the All-Star game? Let us know, as always, in the comment section below. Hassan, hit him up on Twitter at Hassan the Hun, and on Instagram, Hassan the Hun as well.
Yes.
All the Hassan the Hun. What about Snapchat though? Because that's where you're
Big Haas.
That's where you're really at home, is on Snapchat, when he's continuously Snapchatting everything I do. No one is safe.
I know.
See me on Twitter,
if
Francis.
you want to watch